I'm sure that you, like me, rushed over to YouTube to watch Bev Turner's interview with Donald Trump in full. I mean, I know sometimes Bev can be a little bit, well, conspiratorial, but I felt sure she was going to be the perfect person to interview Trump at this pivotal time, I would say, in his presidency. I couldn't wait to find out what sort of insightful questions she asked about the Epstein files. Just tying everything together, like how it's clear that he really did know what was going on there. Like whether he was participating or not really doesn't matter, does it? In terms of he knew what was going on and remained really good friends with Epstein. Also, it should be noted, seemingly stayed friends much longer than he said he'd been friends. And you lot have quite rightly all kicked off about that when it's happened to the guy formerly known as Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson. And tying that into Donald's rather perverse relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, who could forget that he wished her well when she was sent to prison? I felt Bev was clearly going to put two and two together and, like, if he knew that Epstein was up to what Epstein was up to, why did he wish Ghislaine well? And why, even more importantly, when he became president again this time, why did he move her to a minimum security prison? Because she's a convicted sex trafficker. I also thought maybe Bev would bring this up because, after all, GBNews is the channel that champions safety for women and children. So I was amazed when I tuned in to find out that Bev didn't mention any of those things, like, at all. The biggest story of the moment, an area that GBNews feels so passionate about, and Bev didn't even say the word Epstein. And such a brilliant journalist like Bev allowing Trump to say things like the climate crisis is a hoax. She giggled along with him when he said, they used to call it global warming, then they called it global cooling, now they just call it climate change. It's because it literally is, like 99.9% of the scientists can prove that this is happening. But Donald says no, and Bev just nodded along. And he came up with some really weird facts, like China was making all the wind turbines, but they never use them. I mean, surely Bev would have known that China was one of the leaders in wind power. I mean, this wind farm is spectacular, isn't it? It's in China, where Donald says they're not using wind turbines. It's almost as if Donald and Bev didn't realise that you could actually store the energy from wind turbines to use later on in the grid, because he went, it doesn't work because it's not always windy. He just kept telling us to drill in the North Sea. And Bev nodded along like he was saying something sensible. Incidentally, can we just talk about Bev's US makeover? It's interesting, isn't it, how they need people to look a certain way in the US when they're anchoring a programme. But anyway, I digress. Like, one of the weirdest bits for me was when Bev said that people were outraged about the National Guard being used in Washington, but she loved it. She said she's never felt safer. The guards are lovely. She says hello to her guard every day, and they even help people with their shopping. And then, rather alarmingly, she seemed to be suggesting that we should do the same in the UK. In fact, as a patriot myself, I was rather horrified to hear Bev really slag off the UK and seemed to want somebody like Trump in charge over here. It's like she'd missed the fact the 7 million Americans had been protesting the other week because Trump is an absolute danger to their democracy. Although, I have to say, probably like you, also really pissed off that the BBC gave Trump this ammunition to somehow justify his fake news narrative. I mean, it's almost like the BBC have gifted Trump this Joker card to literally get out of jail free. Because whatever the media say about him now, he'll keep saying it's fake news like the BBC. But it's all a bit weird with the BBC, because it felt to me like Bev was trying to tell Donald that he should be suing the BBC. Like the ultimate patriot journalist telling an overseas leader to sue the UK, and don't forget he'd be suing us because it's our money that pays for the BBC, and she was kind of like going, yeah, go for it. I'm not going to lie, by the end of the interview, I was beginning to think that maybe Bev wasn't a patriot. I mean, I'd also be controversial enough to say I don't think she was a journalist. Anyway, good chats, as you were.